See that?
I like it.
See what
It's a new
happens
one.
when you
It could be
say,
a card.
well, when you say that, then you say, well, you do. If I put my real age in it.
I don't know, what did my kids say about you the other day? We were talking about
He's
weight.
mature looking.
No, we were talking about weight and ages, and they said, Mayor Peterson sure looks good.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, from my age.
No, I think they just generally, he sure is fit,
Yeah,
Mom.
that's right. But I do have a saying before we go on the record. This is my motto. And I've had this for 40 years. Don't ever let an old person in your body.
Right.
So stay active, whatever it is.
So
Be active. Be
we-
doing.
we could have had this about 10 years ago, right? You didn't tell me.
Ah, yes, I did. I probably did.
You
We were
did?
probably doing Butler Days 10 years. I probably did. That's what it is, yeah. Whatever it is.
Oh, I must get a head count for the historic committee of who's going on the barbecue picnic outing on the 2nd.
Oh, that's the bridge.
Attendees and spouses, and I don't know who all invited with that.
They're inviting
Everybody?
spouses
I
too?
thought it was just the council.
Just the council?
That's what
Whatever
I,
they say.
They told me to get a head count.
We've had a few council companions come in the past, if it's because it's interesting. Like we met at the old historic cemetery, which, that was awesome. Then we did at Jell's house once.
This is like a type, right? So it'll be just me. And then Joey have a music.
Well, I would say my wife
where's
was,
Chief
I'm
Pearson?
gonna commit it. Mike and Sheldon will do it.
Here's some stuff on. Christine, put you down for 1 or 2.
Okay, we gotta get started.
Instructions, oh, he is back.
Here you are.
Shelton, on the 2nd, we're doing that barbecue for dinner outing with the historic.
You look very nice today.
The bridge.
That's a good.
I wanted to, before we go live, I'd like to thank whoever ordered lunch today or dinner, because it's like 90% waste free compared to what we usually get by bundling it that way. I think that's really great. Is that whoever,
Oh, they rotate the caterers.
well,
This time was, yeah, the bakery, the corner
Shannon, be able
bakery.
to take care of that?
maybe it wasn't intentional, but I don't know if you all noticed, like, usually we have
Different
boxes,
places.
plastic trays
Yeah.
that, maybe there's a way to commercial.
I agree.
A lot of times the vendors come and pick those up. Some of the trays they come to pick up.
Some of them.
So the first
We
thing
save 'em.
is, the first is saying reduce, right? It's not yet to recycle.
So Paul, you about ready?
I am ready when you are, Mayor. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. And we are recording, sir.
All right, welcome everyone, especially Councilmember Shelton back from far, far away. Welcome back. To the Colorado City Council work session on this Tuesday, September 18th, 2018. So we'll begin with, we're going to look at the agenda.
Begin with happy birthday to Mayor Peterson.
Well, first of all, grab some food, and staff have made me tell everyone that it's my birthday yesterday, so it's passed. We're going to pass out some quick cake and ice cream before we go into the dance thing, if that's all right. Personal privilege, I guess. It's embarrassing, but.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Yeah.
You gonna
Happy
sing?
birthday.
You gonna sing?
Yeah, I was going to, but apparently it doesn't.
There, just kind of here. We won't interrupt the meeting.
Yeah, I didn't get an email.
It's about as sophisticated as we're looking at this schedule.
Oh, that's cool.
That shows.
I just wasn't sure if you used some Google Earth or
This,
something like that.
yeah,
That's
he
cool.
used
That's
a
awesome.
schedule for Cottonwood stuff, so.
How are you, Matt?
Good, Chief, how are you?
Good.
Is this big one the current trail?
Those are like, I think it is. He said those are grading ones, but I think that's what that means.
The bottom of the
Character.
trail, or whatever trail. Road.
Paul was getting bigger knife, so.
I get some, bring this down so in a second.
That's a Tuesday night. Yeah. If I don't, yeah, I'll be first.
How was your trip?
That's great.
Well, sunscreen.
Well, I did get a little burn, but just because I was stupid. It was really.
Okay, who wants one? Chief.
Thank you.
Did you go to the meeting? It's good. The county show.
Nope. Me, Joan, and Marge.
Shelley, would you like to
Oh, no, thank you.
understand?
Starting to wrap it up and get it.
As your envision, city going
Focusing in.
forward, 7 words of grounding.
Our trailer's
What is
still
this
on
for?
We're still not budging the speed limit.
Who's?
No.
I said, you guys are budging on this, so let's just make sure
You
we
can,
design
you can
it.
cheat and look at the other.
Design
They
it
won't
to
pass
the
you want
speed
one?
limit, to make it slow
Yeah.
down and then do a
No?
speed study later.
You want ice cream? Okay.
Yeah, what else we got left, please?
Never turned down the pass.
Chief,
What
you
medians
can't
are
have
making
any because of.
Thank you.
So my hope is that
How did you get one?
trail medians and landscaping stuff.
CWH guest or council?
Cross, start driving slow and then
Yes.
come back to speed study.
I didn't see it. In the past, we'll be.
And the landscaping is gonna make you pay for it. Yeah, it's a city thing. It's pretty good.
You want some?
Sure.
I'm surprised I didn't pick it up.
I can come get it.
Would you like some? Bacon, like?
Sure.
So Dan, when you're ready,
Okay,
why don't you go ahead with the public relations report?
okay. Thank you. I have a few media reports to share, and then I have a few other items.
One more, or is that good? Need a,
Bust in Cottonwood Heights today. Police say they seized a large amount of drugs, including a rare hallucinogen known as DMT. Police say DMT is similar to LSD. Police arrested Daniel Orton in connection with his drug bust. His girlfriend, who is 6 months pregnant, was taken to the hospital to be checked out.
Right now, crews are working on repairs to a major...
I'll just, before I preface this, every single station was live last Wednesday morning or Thursday morning, not sure which day it was. But they're all over that.
We were down at the condo and then found the lab in the car and then decontaminated the condo as well. And the health department came out, DEA came out and helped, everybody helped. So he's a known lab chemist, so it's a good drug to get off the street. You don't see much of it around here.
I had 3 different calls as mayor from residents who just saw that, I guess, because it was all over the news. Applauded their efforts. Then it was kind of interesting when I was at Mark in the Park Saturday, talking to our canine officers, and I guess it's one of our newest canines. That was their first case.
Oh, yeah,
At least the officer who was over that dog.
yeah.
That was his first license with the canine, so he was pretty stoked about it.
Well, that was a good one to get.
Because I guess it was the canine that gave probable cause to get in the car.
Correct.
Yeah.
They just walked outside of the car and then they'll hit on it.
One other note too, and it was in one of the reports, but not in that one, but that they said that some officers went to be checked at the hospital because the fumes were so strong in the car. And, I guess
Yeah,
everyone's
they-
okay?
Yeah, they were sick, but they're okay.
Cool. Thanks. Anyway, a lot of media coverage on that.
In Salt Lake County, police are looking for a man they say robbed the American United Federal Credit Union in Cottonwood Heights. Police say this man demanded money.
Oopsie.
When he walked in, he didn't seem at all suspicious, did he?
About 2:30 yesterday afternoon before leaving in a recent model silver Buick Encore. He's described as a white man in his 50s or 60s, about 6 feet tall. And as you see in the picture, he was wearing a black wig at the time. Now, if you recognize this man or know any information, please call the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. The number there on your screen, 801-944-7000.
Definitely illegal.
Elizabeth Smart spoke out yesterday.
Okay. So.
If that guy walks into the bank, does he even have to hand you a note? We have a pretty good lead on it. We'll solve it.
Cool.
We have a guy at the FBI now who's working on it.
Okay. So there's that one.
A woman accused of a deadly hit and run in Cottonwood Heights is now facing a felony charge. Police say on January 1st, Angela Petrogeorge made several phone calls after hitting and killing a pedestrian, but none of them to 911. They say she waited an hour and a half before she called police. Petrogeorge is accused of killing 36-year-old Nathan Brown. Today she was charged with leaving the scene of an accident involving death, a third-degree felony.
The St. George man who was helping to build a new high school in Washington.
That one's really unfortunate.
So did she, what kind of, sentence did you get?
They charged her with a felony.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's got the entire system, but, I mean, the guy lays down the street with, the story, and they ended up, we tried to get it declined, and they wanted to charge her, so they charged her.
Who would you say they?
The district attorney's office. It's really unfortunate, but we're hoping for a good outcome on it. I mean, that's the kind of thing that could happen to anybody. And I don't even know that she knew what she hit. So.
That's all the major reports that happened, at least in the media. The other note, just to follow up, I'll have a proof to you tonight of the newsletter for the October newsletter. It was a really a challenge getting it all fit into 8 pages. There's a lot of information coming down. We had to condense a lot of information. So I'll send that to you electronically and hopefully on a hard copy before you leave tonight, at least if you'd like to look at it in a hard copy. We'll be getting that off to the printer by the end of the week, and then get sent out next week. The delivery is going well, and it's been pretty smooth so far, so we appreciate how it's working out. Just as a side note, I won't be here next week, so we've made arrangements to do other presentations and things, so, and also some of the other things that we normally do here at the streaming. We won't be doing that next week. That's about all I have. Unless you have questions. Oh, I attended the Bark in the Park, which was a great event. I have a lot of pictures there. If anyone wants to see them, I have them ready. If you want to discuss it, it's great. It was a good event. A lot of people showed up. A lot of great little dogs. And
big dogs.
A lot of big dogs. Lots of fun. Well, a little fluffy white one for sure, and a tiny little teacup thing you hold in your hand. Thanks. Anyway, thanks for that. And if you need anything, let me know.
Thank you. City Council and staff reports. Let me start with Chief Watson. Maybe you can update us on the fire that we had in Cottonwood Heights.
Yeah, you betcha. So this was on Royal Lane, and this is that area, that residential area where our apparatus have to cross that little bridge, right? Mm-hmm. Captain Painter, we don't have the rating for that, but Captain Painter has been at 116 for a very long time and knew the bridge would hold, so they went in, and this was reported by the neighbor. It was in the garage. 116, 110 were there, among other units. We had the district chief there, and they put this out really quickly. The whole thing was over in 20 minutes, a minimal smoke damage to the home, but this has been ruled as accidental. So initially, it gave the investigators a bit of a challenge because there were two different areas where fire started. And there are the pictures up on the screen. But what had happened is initially, where the fire started, it heated up an aerosol can and shot it to a different side of the garage, and that started something else. So it looked like there were two different starts, but it was all related and accidental. So the crews did a really good job.
So we were just a long-term employee that figured the bridge was good from not being able to possibly cross it?
But,
I guess I'm a bit concerned, what if he hadn't been there and whoever was on the engine decided, I don't know that we can do that?
Yeah,
Is there a certification?
We've tried to do some work there to try to get a certification, but we can't make the homeowners do it. We can't make them spend money to get that, so right now, we'll just make the decision to go over that bridge, but we would just love to have a rating posted for units. So hypothetically, had 110 and 116 not been the first in units, Medic Engine 35 was there as well, right, from Sandy. We can't expect them to know, right, so.
Oh, well, that's what I'm,
So who owns the bridge again?
it's the homeowner.
Privately owned, so we don't have a way to enforce anything with that bridge.
Isn't there a state statute as far as bridge or anything?
No, it's a private.
But we're required to provide fire over an unsafe route.
Well, we're not saying it's unsafe, we're just saying we'd love for the rating to be posted.
I'm glad you made it in there. I guess this would be a good opportunity for maybe that HOA to look together. It can't be that expensive to get that.
So has it been formally requested of the HOA to have a rating,
Yeah, we've spoken with them in the past.
And they've denied?
Might be a good time to ask again.
Yeah, I think we just did that within the last couple of months, actually.
It hasn't been that long ago. They just said that.
Well, this week.
20 minutes after the fire might have been a good time.
Right, yeah. So I'll have our fire prevention person reach out to them again.
Okay, with staff reports, I'd like to take a minute, and Mike, you can facilitate on this if you will, is that we had our UFA meeting this morning, which is always an interesting meeting and well attended, and staff are well prepared. A couple items I think are interesting to our council is that they had a budget amendment this morning, which they reduced their budget $385,000 because of Station 116 and for us going from 4 to 3 man crews. So I think you should be aware that that's happened and that's been formalized. Also, I thought what was really of interest is we've talked over the last 6 to 8 months about the challenge that we have in public safety, primarily with police, and being able to hire officers. I thought it was interesting today that some of those same challenges, Mike, correct me, have also influenced or had an impact on fire with going through the recruitment process and even overfilling allocations and then with sick leave, and we're down 10 to 15 people.
Yeah, we're down 15, and we were fully staffed right at the time that, once the dust settled, when Draper left, we were fully staffed, but we had quite a few retirements, and at different times of the year than we normally see them. So Chief Peterson did a video and just asked folks if they're thinking about it to let us know November, December, because we're going to be doing recruit camps annually now and entry-level testing annually. So that by February each spring we can do a recruit camp. And we're just having a hard time catching up to the vacancies. One thing we do know is the economy itself. When the economy is really good, it's hard for us to compete with private sector jobs, and then the inverse is true, right? When the economy isn't great, then you see more of an influx for testing. But Tier 2 was part of this. You know, they're all pieces of that puzzle. But so right now we are interviewing 5 days in a row for entry level, and then we'll identify folks for our camp in February. So, but yeah, we're behind the curve.
Well, I guess we're 28 days is in the last 7 or 8 months where there are some units throughout the valley who were forced to go down to the 3 because of this. But most of that's been really corrected, yeah. Another important thing is, I think most everyone's aware of the state audit of UFA because of some impropriety that was identified and the resignation of the previous chief. And so the state attorney general came out, I guess, last week saying that he would not prosecute criminally based upon the results of that audit. And then the UFA and UFSA board met today and took a position of disappointed that the AG's office would not prosecute. And the board members felt that they're concerned because they take it very serious, the managing and handling of public funds, and so they took a position also that UFA staff and legal counsel will work with the finance committee to look at the impacts of that position by the AG's office, and looking at the financial impacts of some of what is considered some improper use of funds, and we'll come back with a recommendation to the full board. And at that point in time, they'll consider possible civil action, which obviously is much different than a criminal action. So we spent time doing that. Any clarification?
The Tribune already did an article on that. So
Okay.
that's
Right
already.
now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
From this
Yeah.
morning, yeah.
It's pretty thorough article.
Yeah. So Rob Dowley, the mayor of Holiday, was heavily involved during that process, and he was the current chair of the UFA board and was leading that discussion. But I know as this council, we were heavily involved from being informed because Mayor Cuomo was part of that. So.
Is it the same person that's supposed to be the head of the inland port?
Yes.
Michael
Yeah.
Jensen, or one of the, on the board?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And you say a lot of detail in a closed session today that I won't share, but the process will go back through the finance committee, then recommend back to the full board, and in our October meeting, we'll take a position. Okay. All right. Anything else, Mike?
No, I personally vet it at the board level. I mean, there are employees who are as disappointed as the board.
I would just maybe say, from my reading of those stories, it highlighted what we have always known, which is the integrity of Chief Watson.
Well, thank you.
And
I'm one of many. Thank you very much.
I just thought, again, you did some things that what must have been great personal risk for the integrity of your organization, and that showed, so thank you.
Ditto and amen to that, and I think the whole UFA board recognizes that as well. And the integrity that the current administration wants to maintain by following through and looking at this and doing it with due diligence. So it's taken it very seriously as it moves forward, yeah. So there's 26 items on the audit.
Yes.
That still are not resolved as a result of not taking that action, so now that has to come back to the forefront.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There were originally 126 points on the state audit. We were able to follow up on 100 of them, and the other 26 were waiting for the AG's office report. Now we can continue working on these.
Okay, thank you. Any other, before we move to Mike Johnson on Wasatch Boulevard, any other staff reports or things that need to be brought up?
Mayor?
Bobby, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention back again, we're trying to consolidate it and get it under a new format with Hexagon. A lot of money's and time and effort's been thrown at it. It was supposed to come online over a year ago. Now the new date is April of 2019. We've met in some meetings. They're telling me they'll miss that date as well. There's, a growing interest in going back to Versaterm. Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County are already on it, and they can convert the rest of us to it without a lot of effort or energy. I don't know how much longer we're going to continue to chase the Hexagon and how much money we put into it and how much longer we're going to let them delay. It's frustrating.
I'll find out tomorrow in my meeting, but does that delay the consolidation of the two PSAPs as well?
Yeah.
Which was scheduled for January.
Right. There's some other things I think in work there that make it problematic, not just to blame it on Hexagon, but I don't know that that's going to happen on time either.
Is it a problem with Hexagon, or is it with the entities just not wanting to change now that
No,
they said that they did?
It's with Hexagon. I mean, there's some inner fighting on which names tables, whose names tables you use, and things like that. That can be easily overcome, and I think most of us will say, use Salt Lake City County's. They've got the gel, they have the best records, and then we'll merge them. But it's just the delay after delay, and I know we've thrown millions of dollars at this thing, and we're no closer than we were 3 years ago to making this happen. And I guess I just get frustrated with excuses. When this first occurred, we thought 18 months was problematic in implementation. And now it's been 3 years, and it's going to be 4, 5. Okay.
Okay, wait to see what Mike finds out tomorrow as well.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Anything else, Robbie?
No.
How'd you, maybe share quickly on how the interviews that you were interviewing a week or so ago?
For officers? We have the 3 in the academy.
You interviewed after that?
Well, we didn't. We're going to next week. I'm going out of town to St. George this weekend, and then we waited for backgrounds.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, and so we'll do it next week.
Okay.
And we have one position.
One lateral that you're looking for, possibly.
Yeah, but I think we're good. We're really proud of our cadets in the academy there.
Okay. Matt, you were.
Just to give you a heads up on Park Center, I sent you all an email last night. They started lowering manholes today, and this weekend they will mill and overlay the Park Center drive. It'll be night work, so we don't disturb the businesses, and try to get in and out of there in 2 days. They're shooting for striping, obviously, and raising the manholes will follow, but it should go fairly.
They can put people in rooms further away from the road that way.
We've let them know. How they operate is up to them. So everyone's been informed. We'll do it again as we get towards the weekend to remind them of what's happening and what's coming up. The work will begin at around 10 o'clock at night and then go until about 7 in the morning. So try to get in and out of there as fast as we can. I was asked to bring up, if I could, some stormwater issues. And we have a property over on Grandeur that some of the residents have been asking about. And so I'm bringing that up for discussion, and I don't know how we want to go forward with it.
The Runyon property?
The Runyon, yes, sir.
Have you heard
I heard while you were gone.
Yeah, so,
Where is it in the world?
Yeah.
Grunt, it's off 7200, it's behind the school,
behind the elementary.
right there behind the elementary school, off
Like behind it to
7200.
the south?
The
or-
southeast, it's a little cul-de-sac, just butts up to the park
You
there.
could probably put it up on the screen.
I think Dan's
I'm getting it right now.
pulling it up.
The basic story though is that the box there, the storm drain box, with enough volume, which they've had a few times in the last few years, overflows and it fills their house. This last big storm
Where are we?
was a fairly significant, they
7200.
submitted it to the trust said, through the city to the trust said,
So I'll let go of the
we're not going to pay that claim.
Got it. Which
So
property is it?
they want to know
This one?
what to do. I mean, they're gonna flood.
Is that a home right there?
To do
That's
folks.
Anzac Park to the,
Yeah, the tennis courts at Anzac Park.
To the west, yeah.
but what you can't tell by that is that the driveway is probably what degree?
About 4 feet.
You're about
of
4
drop.
feet down
4
below the
feet
curb.
of drop.
And the box, you can see the box there, right on the little dash, right.
Little
in
dark
front of
spot.
that
Move
tower.
your hand to the right just a little bit, to that
Right
right
there.
right there, yeah, thank you.
So that, if that gets overwhelmed, the water runs right
That's it
down.
right there.
And you can see the drop there because you can see the steps going down to the garage doors. So that's how much drop there is. The water just runs down.
Is this the one that contacted us through social media as well? I think it is.
So Matt, from your professional point of view as an engineer, okay, has the city met its best practices obligation in controlling water into that area? I mean,
I believe we have. We've done an analysis on our design is a 10-year storm at the 15-minute interval. That's what we've designed our typical storm drain for. Going back and looking at this situation, the inlet box during a typical storm will handle the flow. The pipe actually goes out to the north, just behind that basketball hoop, goes straight out. It's 15-inch, big enough to handle it. But this was built, I'm assuming, when the county was in charge. I don't know. It appears just by the age of the homes. It's a,
but somebody said that we as a city came back in and changed that.
if you'll look right there at the grate, you can see around the
Sorry. Get back in there, sorry.
around the subdivision, you can see it's a rolled curb and gutter. But if you get to the grate, there's a high back that's,
Just
you
for
can
that
see
one.
that it kind of looks like new concrete, those 3 panels. It switches to a high back and then it rolls back into a rolled curb and gutter. So I don't know who did that work. I'm assuming we did it. I don't know the answer.
Does Mike Allen know?
Mike recalls them going and doing some work, so I'm assuming this might be it. This is how long ago it was. I don't know who put in the slot drain on their driveway. You can see a slot drain on their
I
driveway.
understand that the resident put that in.
Okay, yeah, it's brand, new concrete,
That's what he
fairly
told me
new.
when he was young.
So, I think from a design standpoint and the standards, I believe we've met it. And so,
That was a
And-
pretty good storm.
And nevertheless, it's, that the storm that we had was
It was amazing.
less
It was a
than a
big one.
10-year storm though.
Was less? I thought
Less
it
than a
was
10-year
more.
it
storm.
was right at about a 10-year storm. It wasn't as big as we thought it was, to be honest, from the reports. Yeah, and locally, it could have been localized areas, could have been hit a lot harder. I'm not saying it wasn't.
But if we call that a 10-year storm, their home had significant flood damage from that. The water, I mean, if you look at it, the box is not the only potential problem. It's maybe one of the likely culprits, but the water comes down and you don't have a lot of height and curb, and so it just could is probably all we could say. It could come down and jump the curb and go right down before it even gets to the box. So, the potential solutions are to
Bigger box?
double up the box there, to put another box around the corner from here, which catches, you have to probably get out. Yeah, so right near this corner. That catches all the water that comes down the street.
Where are you proposing, or where's?
It's right near there, isn't it?
Can I drive? You can drive. You're gonna be backwards, so I'll turn this around for you. Oops, you're moving it already. Let's try again, sorry.
So Matt, from an engineer point of view, what can be done to mitigate that?
It's like a drag, yeah.
Is the bigger box right there?
Well, there's a couple of things. There's what I believe might be a quick solution, but once again, I don't know what happened during this storm. Just keep in mind, these types of grates right here, these flat grates, can plug pretty quick. So a couple of leaves on that will block up a lot of things, but I don't know what happened. We weren't there during the middle of the storm, but open curb face gutter, which adds a lot more volume to going into the box in here, would be a first step, and probably from a city's point of view, your least expensive. Around $3,000, I'm guessing, at that point. We've looked at, don't look at the road. We've looked at up here, you can see right here there's a box, another inlet, connecting a new inlet box here and tying these two together and picking up a lot of this water that's coming around this corner and then tying it into there is probably a second portion of that.
That's interesting, the curb is high back there.
Yeah, right up in here, yeah.
And down from there.
Yeah, and then it turns right here, you can see where it rolls.
Yep. Beside that cul-de-sac, there may be added there.
There's the transition, and right here, there's your transition. Another option, it's a very expensive option, is going and change that curb and gutter all to high back and put in new curb inlets. Which, if you do that, you end up rebuilding that cul-de-sac completely, which gets up into the 80 plus.
How much, do you have any idea, and this is maybe an unfair question, how much of the flooding in his basement could be caused strictly from the amount of water that is on that driveway?
Comes off the driveway. I've asked for an analysis of that driveway. That's about 1,200 square feet of impervious surface. And on a normal storm, when the box is working, keep this in mind, when the box is, when it's all flowing like it should, they're still hitting the driveway. And that's a large volume of water that would go down on that impervious surface, which goes straight into the garage. One of the things you'll notice, if I can make this thing drive forward.
Just move your fingers forward on top of the ground.
So in our, well,
See this slot drain right here, in my humble opinion, should be somewhere down here catching all that water and then dumping it out.
Where is their slot drain?
It's right on top.
Oh, right.
I'm probably, I've just thought about this since we had a meeting, but the reason it's there is they would have had to lift it to the storm drain if they would have gone down low.
Yeah, I don't know the elevation of, because the storm drain, like I said, runs out this way.
That would be quite the sun.
Yeah. And yeah. I don't know.
Hard to know
full
for
answer.
sure.
Yeah.
Matt,
Without doing a full survey and analysis of it.
Matt, wouldn't we still have the same potential problem? And again, we don't know because we haven't seen it, but if water is going across and sheeting across the cul-de-sac and jumping the rollback drive approach, even if we put in high back curb that would help keep the water flow towards the box, if it's jumping that approach, it's gonna jump another approach. So,
It's coming in fast.
The
and
same
heavy.
thing's true if you put another box there or improve that box.
Yeah.
Anything that's going over the curb is
it's got
still
enough
got you.
velocity, it'll just shoot over. And so my recommendation is, I've worked with other homeowners in the past as a building inspector, was you need to mitigate it on your property also and eliminate the entrance, you know, the opening into your home, or do something, because it's inviting the water.
There's no reasonable way for them to do that here, though. All the water from the neighborhood coming down that cul-de-sac, how could they mitigate that?
Well, what I've seen is people have had to choose to eliminate the garage in the basement and to pour a foundation across it and raise the grade.
It's not only garage, though. They have living space behind the garage.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, if you pour a foundation, change the grade so it slopes back out to the street, which is what the code requires now, you'd have to find another place to park, but what it would do is then your slope is going up to the home, not down.
You're talking about a 7 foot, 8 foot change in.
It would be, yeah, it would require
I mean, you'd pretty well.
extensive work.
But maybe
You
back
would just
to
make it a
standard.
basement.
But Matt, if we design it for the 10-year, by just enlarging the inlet there by opening the back, does that move it to a 20-year per se?
I think it helps tremendously in a couple of ways. One, you get your inlet capacity increases
That's what I'm saying.
quite a
Double
bit.
the inlet capacity, does that move it up to
Yeah,
what standard?
I don't know what year would put it or what kind of storm we're talking about, but it does increase that area quite a bit for that. It also helps in plugging those drains, because when you have the open face, a lot of material goes in there and guts down the pipe. So
I worry, though, that the problem is the straight across, not into the
Before it even
box.
gets to the,
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is that theoretically, that box handles a 10-year storm.
yeah.
In actuality, it doesn't, because the 10-year storm filled the basement with water. So I realize that there are lots of factors in the theory of that water flow.
So, yeah.
I get that those drains do plug up quickly. I have a lot of personal experience with unclogging the one in front of my place.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go out there very regularly during a rainstorm if it's. I also have a much larger area. I don't have storm drains to the east in my neighborhood, so there's a lot of water that can.
It's a 6 foot.
I mean, I understand the issue. As far
The
as-
other thing is that the bigger problem with plugging storm drains happens in the fall. This time of year is not as big a problem normally. I don't know, I mean, we don't know what happened, if it was
Yeah.
plugged or not plugged, but.
physically, we
That was
were
that
out.
hailstorm we had, I think, is the one that did it.
No, the hailstorm was prior.
The
to
hailstorm got them too. They flooded on
Oh,
that
before
hailstorm and then the
hailstorm-
last rainstorm.
Hailstorm was huge, with the water with it.
Yeah, they flooded both of
And
those.
but that only went into the garage. It didn't make it all the way through, according to the homeowner. So our numbers are bearing out that it has capacity in the lines, it has capacity in the inlet. And I don't know the standards, so all I'm saying is I don't know the standards were at the time it was built. There's some things in our new standards that are different, that we would do different than this, but once again, we're judging it on when it was done. As you look at this, also keep in mind, we've had a couple of others very similar.
So there's a couple of particular storm drains in the city that are frequent flyers. Is this one of those, or is this?
This is, I think, the most documented frequent flyer we have,
So
from
this is
what I'm
one of the,
told.
because my calendar had said there was 4 or 5 spots there, always looking at it every storm.
Well, yeah, we call them the hot spots.
Yeah.
And mostly those are because we have to make sure that the grates are clean and because of where they're located.
So Mike,
This
have you
is,
met with Mr. Ryan?
I've spoken with them on the phone, not personally.
and I've talked to them on the phone as well. I haven't met them face to face on this.
Okay, I've talked to him 3 times, but I just I've listened and tried to understand, I got specific. And the trust has denied his claim,
Correct.
assuming that the city has met its obligation, so therefore it's denied it. Now, do we have a greater responsibility to evaluate this and look if there's a way to mitigate it? That's what I'm trying to sense and feel, and that's why I know if you've thought. Now, I haven't heard of his proposed resolution. He says he has some ideas he'd like to talk with us about.
I haven't, he's never brought them forward to me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they've had, okay, yeah, I haven't heard his ideas, and I'd be happy to sit down with him and discuss that, but.
So I'm wondering if maybe the next step, and I know this is, is maybe with Matt and maybe Mike, and I'd gladly join in too since I've been involved this last week. Let's just listen to him and see if there's something that's not cost prohibitive that we can do. Because I think he had like 3 or 4 feet of water in place, is that right?
I don't, this one was about 10 to 12 inches based on the photographs and stuff. There was another home that we saw pictures of that the individual was up to about their knees.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
It was almost the same time.
It was the same storm.
storm.
Yeah.
But here the range of solutions, in terms of dollars, range from about 25,000,
Well, you said 3,000.
Well, for just the one idea, yeah, the one.
25,000 on the high end,
Oh, yeah.
down to 0,
Yeah.
which is, it's not our,
Yeah.
we've met our obligations.
But I think me personally, it'd be valuable to have.
Would you like me to set something up?
Yeah. And then let's just talk. At least we've listened to his personal ideas. If he's got something that he wants to participate, then we can see if it's reasonable for us.
Okay, I'll set up a meeting then and sit down with you, okay?
Invite Mike and I.
Okay.
Will you include me in that also?
Yeah.
For risk management.
So if we have the hot spots, should we come up with a plan for the hot spots too? Just if we're looking at one, or do we have a thought?
Well, like I said, when we talk.
About this too, share with others, and what, we have to be careful of the precedent we're setting, because I think when the word's out that we.
Yes.
Spend a bunch of this one, all of a sudden if we have 6 or 8 others, we may have to do some type of.
Yeah.
Yeah, we.
Oh, sorry.
So I think we don't go in with anything other than we listen and.
But don't we want to understand what our potential liability could be, or if we don't actually have one?
Well,
because it's functioning as.
The trust has
it
already
needs to
told us that.
be. For the other one?
I don't think the trust said what you said. The trust said, this is an act of God and we don't pay out on acts of God. So whether we met the standard or not, I think the trust would not have paid.
Well, they've also said that if you, the homeowner, have additional information you want to bring forward that would change our position, feel free to bring that forward. And so they're looking at what improvements have been made and when.
Yeah, they're gathering information right now.
Yeah.
Correct, they've called for some information.
And the homeowner's trying to figure out when the change was made. And we don't even know what change was made, or it appears we don't even know, we don't have any history of what happened there. But it looks like the curb might have been changed to high back from the road.
But I may be wrong in what you're saying, but typically, my understanding is that the trust looks to see if there's negligence. And if negligence is going to step forward, if you feel there's not, which means if they feel it's an act of God, then we're not negligent. That's semantics, I guess. I think we meet, we communicate, and with what Christine is saying, if there's a broader problem, we would look at all of that. But,
I should also bring up maybe that the homeowner has a long history of communicating with various people at the city on this topic. They've had several conversations with Brad. So we may want to include Brad in that meeting as well, if he has anything to add.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Can I be excused?
Yes.
I have another commitment in July too, so thank you.
Okay, let's move to Wasatch Boulevard.
Yeah, this is just a really quick update on the status of the Wasatch Boulevard Master Plan. As of our last Planning Commission on September 5th, the Commission voted to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to adopt the master plan. This will, if adopted, would become an extension of the general plan. It's a long-range vision specific to the Wasatch Boulevard corridor, comprehensive, covering land use, transportation, transit, recreation, kind of a holistic study. This was the study that was funded by a Wasatch Front Regional Council grant. It began originally in August of 2017. There were 2 open houses held as part of the project study, and it was at Planning Commission beginning into July. So July through September, it was at Planning Commission for public hearing. As far as an official draft plan being presented, we heard very little public comment. The few comments we heard were either positive, hey, we like the plan, we like where it's going, make sure we work with UDOT, make sure we're part of the EIS, which we are. And then a few comments on suggestions for how to make the plan easy to read, which the consultant and I sat down yesterday. Christine joined us and went through some of those formatting changes that will make the plan a little more easy to read. That being said, we're planning to fully present this for council, well, for public comment in front of the City Council next Tuesday. That will be preceded by a staff presentation, so we'll give an overview that'll be a little more thorough. It'll take 20, 25 minutes to run through the important points of the plan, the timeline of how it came to be and its recommendations, and then open it up for public comment. We'd like to see, unless there are any major issues that arise at this point or concerns from the council members, we'd like to see action sometime in October. I think that's reasonable. That would give a few meetings for public comment, if that's the council's desire, and then getting an adopted plan will help greatly as we move forward with the EIS and making sure some of our goals from our plan are implemented as part of the EIS. So that's just a primer. You're going to get a full presentation next week. I'll send out a draft plan between now and then for your review, and then we'll schedule it.
Did we have a draft a month or 2 back once?
I'm sure I've sent it to you already. It's going to be similar unless the consultant can get the changes we talked about made in time, which really is just formatting.
Yep.
I'll send you what we have. I'll send you our staff report, all the public comments we received, and we'll proceed from there.
Okay, questions to Mike on that for next week? Okay. Anything else on staff reports? Just one quick thing on an event I attended this morning. As a city, along with 7 other cities, we passed ordinance with one of the primary reasons to send out a message to constituents about being idle-free. And so the state passed a declaration that the month of September is idle-free month, and they've had, I guess, 71 cities all sign on in support of being idle-free, with 8 cities in the valley passing an ordinance. And so that was presented this morning, and nice event. So a lot of kudos to Cottonwood Heights for being on board. It ties in a little bit to our discussion next week about sustainability with Ms. Lauders, and pass this on. People can take a look at it if you like it. Okay, with that, we have Brian Allen here, one of our proud lobbyists who represents us at the legislature. Come on up, Brian.
Hi there. Thank you.
Just as a background, I gave Brian a call, and I wanted him to be aware of the discussion in our last budget process. I was a little bit shocked and surprised he wasn't made aware of this months ago, and I apologize to him for that. We didn't have a chance to respond. The results of that budget process, and asked him today if he would come and talk about expectations of him and his role, and how he sees that relationship, and that after that we would make thought determination of where we are going forward. Okay, so Brian, I'll let you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate the mayor reaching out to me. I was, yes, needless to say, very surprised at the decision. Would like to talk a little bit about that. We had a recent contract renewal when we were given an increase, and we didn't ask for that increase. That was just offered to us as a reward for our good work. Tried to turn it down, was told no, please take it, and so I did. I'm happy to certainly give that back if that's part of if that's created some angst for the council. Certainly wasn't anything we asked for. I want you to know that up front. We were happy with the fee that we were getting. We were trying to provide the best service that we could within that fee. I'd certainly like to reconsider your action based on the work that we can do for you. And I'll give you a little history about what we've done for you in the past and what we see coming in the future where I think our services will be needed. But I want you to understand that we are Cottonwood Heights residents first. We care about the city, we love the city, and we're contractors second. So we will ultimately stand by whatever your decision is as far as what's right for the city. My job, I guess, ultimately is to convince you that keeping us at our previous rate is probably right for the city, because I think there's a lot of things that we can do for you. There is sometimes an understanding or an expectation that the league can handle a lot of the stuff that we do for you. And while we do work a lot with the league is limited to a certain extent on what they're able to do directly for the city. The league does a fantastic job on issues where they have a broad consensus and that they have membership within the diverse league that would support a particular issue. But often the league is sidelined on issues because the membership's divided and they can't get to a consensus. In some cases, the league operates in a very global world. They have an entire state of cities to represent. The legislators operate in a local world. They don't live in a global world. Legislators work on issues that are local to them because constituents bring them problems, they bring them troubles, they bring them issues, and legislators try to solve those, but it's really on a local level. We work on a local level as your lobbyists. We can work on issues that are directly impacted, that directly impact Cottonwood Heights. We can certainly help our local legislators work on issues that constituents have brought to them and help, stave off things that might happen to the city, having not been there to help kind of guide that discussion. The league will rarely and almost never weighs in on an issue that's specific to a single city. That's really not their role, and they don't do that. We're in a position where we can really zero in on issues that are important to Cottonwood Heights City and that directly impact our city. The other thing that the league does a great job, but they don't have the internal staff resources. If there's a big floor fight up on the hill, they need everybody they can get to throw at that thing, and we have been integral. And you're welcome to talk to Cameron or anyone at the league. We have been side by side with them on some of those major fights. We have been instrumental in fighting billboard bills. We've been instrumental in fighting back really ugly zoning bills that would have taken away cities' ability to zone. And sometimes those are full-on wars that happen up the legislature. And that's an area that we really work hard on, and that we do, I think, a really excellent job at is we know how to battle when those fights are needing to be fought. The other thing that is interesting is that sometimes because of the membership of the league and how diverse it is and the different feelings that they have, we can often offer a unique perspective that is different and more persuasive than what the league can do. And we have found that we've had very good success. Sometimes the league will come to us and say, hey, we need help with this. Our voice, they're not listening to us. Will you please go talk to these people? And we go talk to them and get resolution. So that's also, I think, an important role that we play. And I think the other thing that's really important is that, Cottonwood Heights has been viewed as a leader since it became a city on the hill. I mean, there really is. Cottonwood Heights leads out a lot on public policy, and we've been very instrumental in helping do that. And I think it's important that the city maintains that stature on the hill. I think it's critical, because when issues come and fights happen, I mean, you certainly want our voice to be the credible voice up there so that we have a say in what happens. Let me just tell you a little bit about what we've done in the past, because most of you haven't been around since the beginning. Back when the city was first formed, there was an issue with the Municipal Services Fund of the county. I'm talking about Chantel and I, and to a certain extent Kennedy, your husband. We basically single-handedly fought that bill through the legislative process, so that we could recover as a city the $2 million of money that was in there that belonged to our residents. That was a huge fight and a huge effort, but the league wouldn't fight that for us because they didn't care. It wasn't their issue. About $1 million to help finish up the trail that goes up from 30th East up to the Big Cottonwood Canyon mouth. That was something that I personally care a lot about. I'm a big trails guy. I love trails. I ride that trail a lot on my bike, it's a lot more fun to ride it now than trying to ride up the road when it ended there by the pond, and riding up Big Cottonwood Canyon Road there was often dangerous because it's very narrow, and for a person on a bike on a sunny morning, sometimes cars can't see you when they're coming up that road. The trail's been a big benefit, but that's something that we did. We spent a lot of time when bills were running related to UPD and UFA, making sure that bills weren't amended in a way, or making sure bills were amended in a way depending on the bill, so that the city would lose its negotiating power. We wanted to make sure the city maintained a firm position on being able to negotiate those contracts. And there have been efforts several times to undermine that ability, and I think it's critical that we maintain that ability so that we can maintain some control over those costs. We were very instrumental in dealing with the short-term rental bill. There were, for 2 years running, there was a very ugly short-term rental bill that would have really made it impossible for the city to have any kind of zoning authority over short-term rentals. It would have really stripped your rights to be able to do that. No one cared about that bill more than we did. And we really were the leading force on making sure that bill.
Is that the reason with like Airbnb and those types of rentals?
John Notwell's bill.
Okay.
We have a good
Permitted
relationship.
in any zone, period.
Yeah, we have a good relationship with Notwell. We were able to get him to back off of that proposal for 2 years in a row, and he's finally abandoned it, I think, altogether. That's just a really bad bill for cities. Billboard legislation. We have been, I would say Cottonwood Heights has led out on that issue. They've drafted an ordinance that really should be the model for the state, it was a good compromise. It was well thought out, and we have promoted that. But the one thing we've been able to do, because of our relationship with the sign companies and our relationship with legislators, last year there was a very ugly billboard bill that would have caused you to have to litigate every single billboard removal, every single billboard upgrade. It would have been a nightmare for cities. It would have cost you thousands and thousands of dollars in litigation for every single billboard sign that ever got touched. We were able to go to the billboard company and get them to back off that proposal. And they did that because of Cottonwood Heights leadership on the billboard issue and because of our relationship with them. And I think it's not tangible money, but it's money that you aren't going to have to spend in the future. That's I think, a really big deal. Mountainous Planning District. It was through our efforts when the Mountainous Planning District bill was being negotiated that Cottonwood Heights and other impacted cities got a seat at the table. Originally, the city would have had no voice in that. We fought for that. We fought for the city being able to have a seat at the table, so that, because what happens in those mountains directly impacts our city, because we're the conduit to get to those mountains. And it would have been a real problem for us had we not had that voice. And the league, that's not an issue the league cared about or was even going to work on. That was something that we had to do on our own. Township amendments. There were multiple attempts to amend the township law that would have prevented our city from being able to annex islands that were contiguous to our city. It would have created a township of islands, ultimately. And we were able to push that off. We were able to fight that. And it was, look, the county's tough. They got a lot of lobbyists. They got a lot of people up there. And again, that's not an issue the league cared about, because townships is a Salt Lake County issue, and the rest of the membership, they didn't care. So that was an issue. That's a battle we had to fight. And so we fought that, and we won. And I think we preserved the city's ability to annex those islands. We were instrumental in getting the school, probably instrumental. I think we were the only lobbyists working on getting the school district split legislation passed through the legislature. And that was a charge that we got from the city council at that time to see that bill through. And we were able to successfully get that passed. It was an ugly, bloody fight. And then we were able to successfully, in subsequent years, fight back amendments that would have created an onerous tax burden for our citizens. We were able to push some of the really ugly property tax proposals off. We continued to honor our obligation, which we thought was important to the old school district, but we didn't want them to impose new taxes that would go on in perpetuity to support them, because over time we knew, and I think that time has finally come and passed, actually, that they would be able to self-sustain and have probably the same or better revenues than they would have had with us together. So that, I think, was that was a real fight, and that's something that we worked on for multiple years. We were instrumental, and this is another thing that we did completely on our own. No one else cared about this, but we did. But we've had to pass some legislation to facilitate the creation of Mountain View Park. The park wouldn't be there today if we had not been able to get that legislation passed to allow the school district to enter into a contract with the city at the rates that we got to make that happen. So I think that's a gem in the city, and it's been, I mean, it's been a real godsend for families in that neighborhood. And that's something that we were able to help see happen.
That one, I don't remember, what was you just stated?
There was something that, it wasn't a really significant change, but there was a change that needed to be done to allow the school district and the city to contract together.
In the first right of refusal that a district has to offer to a municipality or other entity.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Before it can go to a developer.
That's what it was, yeah, we put that for.
So rather than just putting up the sale and having it go to the highest bidder, where it could have been sold off to.
It gave the cities the right to purchase that land to preserve open space.
Yeah.
That's what happened. But that was something that was really, it was all us. That was no one else who worked on that bill. We were very involved in the passage of the transportation transit tax legislation that ultimately was voted down by the voters, but it was, at least there was that option out there. And so we helped that. Last year we worked very hard to resurrect the plastic bag bill in the House, maintaining local control over that issue. You know, it was something that, I mean, we fight every year for local control. The legislature they still have this mentality. I heard a legislator say it just a couple of weeks ago that they feel like the state has a compelling interest in local zoning and that they should control more of it. That's a frightening thing. And we need voices up there to fight that all the time, push that back. For the last 2 years, I worked with leadership. We're trying to get money set aside to complete the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, and we continue to work on that. It's another thing that's kind of near and dear to my heart. And so that's another area that we have not been, it's not quite been fruitful yet, but I think we're getting close. I also have a very unique relationship with Linda Hull from UDOT. I was kind of her go-to person when I was in the legislature on transportation issues, and we have a good relationship. And I have conversed with her multiple times about the issues with Wasatch Boulevard and the congestion and the safety issues. I bike along Wasatch, and it's a little better now, but when I first started talking to her about it, it was scary to bike along there, especially on mornings where the ski resorts were going, but it was still warm enough to ride. It was like taking your life in your hands riding along there, and it's just really been it's been a sore spot in our city for a really long time. They're finally getting around to doing something about it, which I'm grateful for, but there's more that needs to be done, and I think we need to continue to fight on that. No one else cares about that but us. That's our city. And so we need a voice that will make that kind of thing happen. And I think why it matters, I guess, going forward. So that's a lot about what we've done. Like, nobody really cares what you did for me yesterday. What they really care about is what you can do for me tomorrow. I get that. I understand that completely. Let me just tell you some of the things that are coming. And one of the things that we've worked on, for multiple years, and I think we're finally seeing a change, is that we're seeing a real change in the legislative attitude towards open space, trails, renewable energy, the things that are more environmentally friendly and environmentally sensitive, and stuff that makes our community really vibrant. I mean, open space, one of the things that I've complained about for years and years and years is that and it's no slight to the county because no one could ever probably foreseen the growth in the valley that we've had, but when they planned our eastern neighborhoods, they never really planned for trails and open space at all. There was nothing. Because we always had so much open space around us, why would you have to plan for it, right? Well, now that we're filling in, how do we now recapture some of that? And so passing bills like giving cities first right of refusal to buy open space when a school closes, or, creating trail funds, creating corridor preservation, that type of thing. Those are things that we've worked on to help do that. Those are becoming issues of prominence now in the legislature. There's actually support for a lot of those things, more than we've ever seen in years past. So I think that's an area where we can be a real help because Cottonwood Heights is ripe for a lot of that opportunity, and it's an area that needs it. I mean, our city is, we need more trails, we need more open space, we need all of that, and the more that we can do to preserve that and create opportunities to make it happen, we want to do. And in some cases, we have to run trails down existing roadways. There may be legislation needed to make that happen, because some roadways, if they're designated as secondary arterials, whatever, have to have certain widths and other things. We may need to seek some legislative approval to make variances along those lines, to do the things that we hope to do as a city to build our trail system. So those are things that we really care about. Sales tax issues, transportation funding, transit funding, all of that stuff is under scrutiny right now by the legislature. You know, they're talking about how are we going to do this going into the future as, you know, gas tax revenues decline, sales tax revenues are going online and out. You know, they're not locally based anymore. So those are all things that are going to be really important for us to continue to maintain, you know, our revenues and maintain our viability as a city without having to go through these painful tax increases that you just had to experience. I think the other thing is that, you know, the league continues to be a very diverse unit, and as good as they are, they can't do everything that's going to be unique to us. And I think having a voice up there to fight for those things is really, really important. And there's more that we need to do. I mean, all those battles continue to need to be fought. It's not like once you fight them, they're over and done with. They're like Lazarus. They keep coming back, right? They just never go away. So we have to keep fighting those. I think that we really need to continue to lead out on increasing transit options on the east side of the valley. I mean, our transit options here were not as good as they used to be. They've really declined. They've shifted that money to other places and to other needs, and we need to get some of that back, because more and more people moving into our community want to use transit, and they want to access it. And that wasn't true maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but I think it's a lot more true now. And I think I use transit a lot. I love transit. When I go to the Utah game, I hop on tracks and I go to the stadium. I don't even try to park it there. It's crazy. And, you know, people are becoming more accustomed to using it, and it's becoming a lot more popular. I think the other really big issue that's going to be important to us as a city is this online sales tax and how they decide to distribute that to cities. You know, we have a lot of, you know, I think a lot of risk there if we don't have a seat at the table to make sure that our interests are represented. And I think really too, I mean, the legislature just started talking about, you know, I mean, renewable energy and working at you know, Utah Power and Light's willing to start coming to the table and doing things. Those are efforts that, as a city, we can really capitalize on and lead out, I think, and become a leader in the valley on sustainability and renewable energy, because, you know, we have, I think, an appetite for it in the city, and there hasn't really been a mechanism before now that's really at a state policy level to really help make it happen. And I think we can help drive that discussion and make that happen. Is something that I care a lot about, and really I'm a big fan of. I have solar on my own home. It's a self-contained solar system. When I do a remodel job, I'm going to actually go to an on-grid system. You know, now that it's, you know, it's becoming, you know, Rocky Mountain Power is getting easier to work with on those issues. I mean, it's an opportunity for a lot of us who feel that way to do that. So anyway, the bottom line is that I think we've done an excellent job for you. I think that we love the city. We care a lot about it. We care a lot about what happens in our city. We have worked extremely hard for the city and for a number of years now, and I think we've had some great success. We're not done. There's a lot more that we want to do and can do for you. You need, obviously, I mean, I'm sure the priorities have changed a little bit since the composition has changed and some of the people have changed. We're happy to lead whatever charge that you want us to lead up there and to help our city maintain its stature of a leader on the Hill and to continue to do good things for our city residents. It's good for you, good for us, and I think good for everybody who lives here, and that's really what our goal is. We're really trying to bring home good things for our city so that our way of life here in our city is maintained, protected, and it continues to be a city that people love and want to live in.
Okay, well, I'd like to, you know, the council to have an opportunity to ask any questions. I think part of tonight is one, to hear from Brian, but also for Brian to hear of our expectations. Obviously, you've had a lot of topics that were on my mind, you know, and I appreciate that. Anyway, before I jump in, council, comments, thoughts?
No, I would say, no, I appreciate the relationship we've had. Having gone through most of those legislative sessions and issues as they come up. I know that you've done a remarkable job on doing that. It's, you've always been a nice, even though you moved in District 2, you know, I know you're down the hill there and Chantel as well. And I think that gives you a nice perspective, at least on what we want, because you know what's going to happen here affects you directly as well.
Sure.
I'm probably a little more familiar with all the fires that you have put out. But no, I appreciate that. It's been a great relationship. I don't know if the others know this, but you also work with us from day one with Butlerville Days and some of the other community events and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a community.
That's volunteer.
That's a community service thing. It's not related to this. I'll keep doing that. I love doing that. That's a great event, and something that I think brings the city together, and it's really a nice summer event to bring families together. So that's not going to change my opinion of that one way or the other.
Thought that was really valuable. I think that gave a great perspective. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What I propose will happen, Brian, is that we will go to closed session on like 3 or 4 topics tonight, and because this is a contract thing and we're seeing all that stuff, we'll communicate that back and forth. And Mike wasn't here last week. We talked about this briefly, and we'll review that and get right back in touch with you. But appreciate you sharing that information is shared. I do have one question, which is real interesting to me, and that's online sales tax. Where's that at in?
Well, you know, the challenge that you have with online sales tax is that it's going to have to be centrally collected at the state level and dispersed. And you know, the state has an unending appetite for money. And there are some in the state legislature who believe that all the online sales tax money should just go to the state, should not go to the cities. And there are others who believe it should be distributed. And the question then becomes is what formula do they use to distribute that money, and how does that impact our city? I believe that all of it, I think it should be divvied up just like sales tax is now. I mean, I think it should be treated just like a retail sales tax, and figure out where the nexus is. And I think if it comes from a zip code or in a neighborhood in our city, we should get that money. Now, how they determine that, I don't know. I mean, obviously, that's the challenge. But I think to the extent that
we're talking years down the road, or is this?
No, I think this is something that's going to happen. With that Wayfair decision, unless Congress comes in and does something to undo that, which I've heard talk of that as well, and we've talked to some of our national people on that issue as well, advising them that it would be, unfair to the state and the locals to have Congress, upend that court decision. So there, there'll probably be some federal legislation. We're hoping that will continue to allow it to flow to the states. But we have to have a conversation at the state level and make sure that we're getting our fair share of that money, and that the cities are being treated right on that. And that's a real big issue, because there's a lot of hands out there for that money, tons of them. I mean, the appetite at the state level for money is, you can have a $2 billion surplus and there'll be $4 billion of requests. It's just the nature of the beast.
Do you see any opportunities coming up in this next legislative session for us as a municipality to obtain resources for things like roads or parking or trails?
Well, I think clearly, I think we can demonstrate a need, especially around the mouths of the canyons, for additional parking. We've got to, to the extent that we can reduce car traffic up and down the canyons, but still maintain access with public transit, there's going to have to be a place to put those cars. And everybody knows the car traffic in the canyons is just too heavy. So they're looking for solutions. I think there's a real opportunity for us along those lines to do some things. I think there's certainly an opportunity for trails. I've talked with Mike Styler, who's a friend of mine who runs the Department of Natural Resources. They're really considering trying to develop some kind of a trail initiative to help develop more trails around the state. And certainly urban trails is a big issue in the Salt Lake Valley. We don't have enough of them. And I think people are starting to recognize that. And I think that we can leverage that and get some things done. We've certainly been talking, and we've talked a lot about the Lauderdale Shoreline Trail up there, and we've come super close on getting some money in the past couple of years. And I'm going to continue to work with Mike at the Department of Natural Resources, because most of the trail money goes to them and then they disperse it. If we can continue to build on that, I think that.
Well, can we get even our local legislative body to initiate any of those things?
Well, that we would certainly use our local, we'd have to use one of our local reps or senators to initiate that. That would have, and that would really how it needs to come through them. So if they can start pushing that, and that's just an education process. We're gonna have possibly a lot of new people this go around that are representing the city. I think Marie Polson's probably pretty safe, but all the other ones are probably kind of up in the air right now. I think, well, for sure, we're gonna have a new senator where Niederhauser was, because he's retiring, and that's probably gonna be Kirk Colmore. But I don't know that. I mean, I don't know, there's no polling data on those races, so we really don't know how that's gonna look. You just kind of hear what's out there on the street, but I think but we're gonna have new people that are gonna need to be educated, and that's something that's another thing that we do, is really try to work with our local delegation to help them understand what the city issues are, where the pain points are, and what they can do as a representative or senator to help us alleviate some of those pain points.
Well, I know they, I'm trying to think if there's an exception. I don't know that there has been an exception that was not thanked you for that education, because it's hard when you're dealing with 1,300 bills and 400 of them are supposed to come across your desk for a vote, to get up to speed on all of them and know exactly what's going on. And so I know, for example, Marie and Brian Shizawa, all the ones for as far back as I can remember, I don't think there's been exceptions. It's not said, we appreciate you being there and helping us understand what the city wants and why, so that when they go to their committee meetings or wherever, they actually can make coherent arguments and thoughts, and they know why they're doing what they're doing, rather than just kind of hoping that they're guessing at the right things. We haven't been perfect in that. Obviously, every now and then something gets through, but they have, I think, almost all of them expressed gratitude for
Well, I'll tell you,
being kept up to speed.
We are super fortunate, because we have had a history of good people running for office and winning in our city, and good, capable people. I have no doubt that all of the candidates that are running now, what I know of them, they seem all very capable. So I think no matter how it shakes out at the end, we're going to have good people to work with, and people that I'd be happy to work with. So I mean, we're a very fortunate city, because it's pretty rare that you just get the level of candidates at any level for office that we get in the city. I mean, it's a pretty fortunate thing.
Okay, any further questions? No, Brian, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Well, good luck in your deliberations. I don't envy you. I mean, I understand how difficult it is, so I appreciate that. I appreciate the time to be here. Thank you.
Okay, talk to you soon.
All right, thanks. Have a great night.
Yeah. Looking, you may be out of here by 8 o'clock if you're there.
I don't have my reflectors.
Huh?
I don't have my bike reflectors.
So you gotta hurry.
7:30.
All right, before we go into closed session, a couple calendar items. One is a reminder, next Tuesday we have a presentation by Ms. Yoder, right?
Is that something
She was here tonight, Mike speaking, just to kind of introduce herself and get the lay of the land. And I know that like Holiday at Mill Creek and Sandy will also be here, the representatives, to all talk about possibly sharing that direction, out of interest there. October 2nd, 5 o'clock at the bridge at Spencer's Pond. The Historic Committee is being articulate what's going on there.
Yeah, they'll be doing a little historic presentation for us, as well as dinner. We're giving a head count tonight. Should be fun.
There's parking right there at the, it's kind of like the trailhead at the bridge. Any other calendar items that,
There's the Wind Symphony Orchestra concert on the 1st of October. It's the Arts Council event. It's Sterling Paulson's conducting the orchestra, and Utah Wind Symphony and Choral Arts Society Choir. And it's our Arts Council event.
where's it?
At Butler Middle,
Oh.
yeah. It's at 7:30. We should have somebody there probably to represent.
Okay, as an FYI, I'll be in Washington DC representing Central Wasatch Commission a week from tomorrow, just for like 24 hours. But, just laying some groundwork with respect to protection of our canyons, in transportation, trails, parking, all the issues of the mountain accord. Yeah. And of course, the land swap and all those things we discussed then as well. But anyway, I'll be there just kind of an overnight thing, and you've asked me to attend that. Any other calendar items?
October 31st is trunk or treat.
Oh, yeah. And the,
That's the Business Alliance one, right?
The CHBA sponsor it. It's going to be in the parking lot, and it's at 3, so it's going to be cozy for a bit out there.
Okay.
Off as much of just the first 2 rows as we can, and if we fill up and we don't have more spots, we'll just use what cars we have.
So you have Monster Mash.
Monster Mash on the 26th, I believe it is.
Okay, Monster Mash,
That's at the rec center.
on ice.
They're just calling it the Monster Mash now, but yeah.
All right.
It's the 26th Friday, yeah. So that, I think it's a 7.
We'll just get those on the calendar.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, I don't know if you shared with the mayor, we have a park street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited for that. I'm really excited. Okay. Anything else? If not, we have 4 items to discuss in closed session. 3 of those are dealing with character and professional competence or physical or mental health of an individual. And the 4th is a land use property issue. Okay? So the acquisition, well, possibly.
That's your sir.
That's what it needs to be.
Yeah, it needs, yeah.
He knows,
It
yeah.
needs to be that.
Shane's already.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought I moved that we close the open session and open a closed session for the purpose of discussing property acquisition and personnel issues.
Okay. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.